What's up, everybody? We're getting ready to get into episode 7, which I am shortly corrected on, and you'll hear that. But before we do, Skype is a tricky beast, which is how we record this show. And there is a volume issue with our guests and with Gort until about the 40-minute mark. You should be able to hear anything, but I figured out a way to adjust it around 40 minutes, so it will also change. And with that, let's get into the show. And we're back, and we're still without a proper vocal intro, so we're still going with this, which is just sort of saying we're back. It's The Force Sensitive. This is episode 6. We're almost out of the 80s, and we're going back in time, I guess, if we're doing it chronologically.
Bobby.
Yeah.
This is episode 7.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Did I do 5 twice? Did I say 5 twice? See, you got to keep tabs on me. I'm a mess.
Uh-oh. I don't know.
All right, so this is episode 7, pardon me. This is Chris B. Awakens, and we have Chris B. with us. You may know him from the TKO podcast, friend of the show, as I like to say, and he's with us today. So how are you doing?
I am doing good, and it's funny you say that we awaken because we are recording this at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yes. So my schedule, poor Gort, he rolls with it like a champ. But
he works third shift, so this is just like him.
Yes,
after work.
yes, it is. It is nice that it has worked out that way. But he when we started doing this, he was like, "What's good for you?" And I was like, "Fridays from 9 to 11." And he's like, "Okay." And
I own my own business, so I can schedule whatever I need.
Oh, that's nice.
But it's just like I'm not used to talking about nerd stuff until after at least noon.
Oh, okay. I got you. Yeah, so it sometimes he's like, "Can we push this one back to 9:30?" And I really got to look at him like, "Ooh, 9:30 maybe, but not 9:45." So without any further ado, let's get started. What is your first memory of Star Wars?
I'm gonna try and do a thing, but it's basically this.
That's pretty good.
It's not actually. I'm a little bad. I can do it like spot on, but like I said, it's a little early and my kids are upstairs, and I don't want to.
I hope you
out.
practice because you're going to need that much later. You'll see when we get there.
But yeah, that's my first thing. Is just seeing that Tusken Raider jump up and hold up the gaffy stick, and that's why, to this day, I guess we're going to talk about it later, but he's my favorite character.
Really?
Awesome.
The native Tatooiners, as I like to call them.
Yep.
That sounds like distant relatives
of
mine.
No, I found out that Sand People is no longer acceptable. It's native Tatooiners.
Junlin Waste West Siders.
So when was it that you saw the movie?
I am 45. I'll be 46 in a couple months, so I'm probably one of the older, if not the oldest guest you've had so far.
You are. You win. You win for losing.
Yeah, I win at being old. Fantastic. So I did go to the theater, but I barely remember it. So my earliest really memory of it is playing with a little Jawa figure and sticking him inside a Sugar Babies box.
Wow, that's very specific. So yes. Your memories are more so centered around your early memories more so centered around the toys than they are the movies.
Oh, absolutely.
That's interesting. Absolutely. Did you have what did you have as a kid?
Everything except the AT-AT and most of the Power of the Force stuff. Everything else I had.
Huh. That's pretty awesome.
Y-Wing. I didn't have that.
Okay.
I was spoiled. I mean, my grandparents doted on me.
Uh-huh.
My parents to a lesser degree, but Christmases were huge. We used to get big trash bags full of stuff.
No kidding.
Cool.
And my grandmother would wrap the stuff, and I would get shirt boxes. And, when you're a kid, you see a shirt box, you're like, this ain't going to be good.
Right.
But
yeah,
she would
that's the
line
worst.
4 or 5 figures in a box and wrap them. And I would have 5 boxes that had 5 figures in each.
That's awesome. Did you have any favorites as a kid? Was there any that you played with more than others?
Not really, no.
No, just celebrated the whole bit. You had the Falcon?
Mm-hmm.
Death Star?
The playset, yeah.
Nice. I had the Death Star, but it was a hand-me-down from a cousin that was significantly older than me, and I think he was into drugs by the time that I inherited most of his stuff. And it was missing like all of the struts. So my dad like replaced them with like popsicle sticks and like, but my dad is not the type to like shortchange something. So he would take the popsicle sticks and like take an engraver and like engrave the little slots so they slid right down in the ridges and were actually pretty stable. Like he glued two of them together back to back so it was a little thicker and fit right. And then he engraved the slot so that it fit right in the channels and then actually supported the thing fairly well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I still have it. I had it on display for a while. I had to recently box it back up because I just ran out of a room. It was the barge that did me in, but whatever.
How's the cardboard on it holding up?
The cardboard is long gone. I don't think I ever had it. I don't think I ever had the cardboard because I just got like I didn't have the cardboard. I didn't have any of the stuff that was in the trash compactor, including because it came with a Dianoga, didn't it?
Yes.
And I didn't have
was
that.
Gonna be my question.
Yeah, and like, did it have like the string accessory to jump across the ridge or the can?
I'm sure it did.
Yeah, it didn't have that. Like, it was missing a ton of stuff. It didn't have the gun that sat at the top. Like, it just had like the chair to sit in, and then you had to you put the emperor in the chair. But because it's like it was like 4 POA, his feet just sat straight out like an idiot. So I never put the emperor in the chair because he always looked like a fucking buffoon. I'm trying to think about it.
That sounds like my when I started going to conventions, I actually bought an AT-AT in similar condition, like no side panel, like missing a foot, missing the guns, everything.
You know, I had the AT-AT. I got it much later on at like a yard sale during the dark period, and it had the side piece and it had the thing that sat on top, but everything else was missing. So like it looked complete. You know what I mean? But everything else was MIA. And I kept it forever. I think it's still the one that I have properly. But what's a kind of a bummer to me about all of that is when some of that vintage collection stuff started coming out later, I just assumed they were using the Power of the Force tactics. So I like didn't pick any of it up. Like I didn't pick up the new AT-AT. I didn't pick up the new Falcon. I didn't pick up any of that stuff because I was like, oh man, I got one. And then like I saw it years later and I was like, oh, this is not the same. This is not the same. And now that Falcon goes for like $600 to $800.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So heavy into the toys. Were you like the kid that, did you have any, let me ask you, because we haven't really got into any of this stuff. Did you have any of like the role play accessories?
No. I didn't dress up or do it, and to this day, I still don't dress up.
Right. I had Solo's blaster, and
I would consider that, but you know, I think that's the only thing I had.
And I had Chewbacca's bandolier that you could put the figures in with the little styrofoam, or it was like.
I remember that.
Yep, I had that.
You walk around with the figures?
No, never, because it wasn't movie accurate, and actually, I was pissed because it didn't have the like the pouch, like the purse part.
Yep.
And my grandma actually had a purse that looked just like it, and she sewed it into the plastic of the bandolier. So I used to rock that pretty regularly.
And wasn't that stuff like really, really thin?
Yeah. The pieces that held the foam were extremely thin. Where you put the figure between the plastic and the foam. And then I didn't have it, but I always wanted it. This kid in my neighborhood had it, the Stormtrooper blaster, because that thing looked badass.
With the collapsible stock.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that thing.
Somebody
was cool.
had one of those at a booth at ZoloCon. It was beat to shit. The stickers were all like haggard. They were asking like $300 for it. I'm like, that's insane.
Yeah. I ended up.
My mom wouldn't let me have guns when I was a kid, like little cat guns or any.
Oh, really?
Any of that kind of stuff. So I was surprised I actually had Han's blaster.
Dude, it's so funny, man. I think about that from time to time because like you can't even buy like realistic looking guns now in the store, you know, for kids' toys. But I remember as a kid, like we would go outside and play guns, and like I just imagine like what it must have felt like or looked like just to see 30 kids running around the neighborhood with like pistols.
You know what? None of us grew up and killed people.
Yeah, well, most of us anyway.
Well,
but,
yeah, most of us. I can't speak to everybody.
Right. But yeah, I think it's crazy, man. Like, it seems like a completely different country in that regard. Like, I think I would probably feel weird about it now. Like if I sent my kids outside to run around with a bunch of guns, like it is just I guess it's just a different time. So you had a lot of toys, and that was your first memory. And then when do you really remember the movie sinking in, or in which movie was it?
Empire. I can remember sitting at the Kmart diner, because the Kmarts used to have little cafeteria kind of places that you could go.
Mm-hmm.
We'd go there after church on Sunday, and I remember this particular Sunday was opening weekend. I conned my grandparents into taking me to see it after breakfast. I'm sitting there like, I'd really like to go see that movie. And it just came out. And
they hooked you up.
Right afterwards, like, yep, right to it.
That's what grandparents are supposed to do.
There was a movie theater in the mall that the Kmart was in, so it was not a problem.
Nice. Did I'm getting this like this image of your upbringing, right? Because you weren't allowed to have guns. You were going to church on Sunday. Did you grow up in a pretty like rigid square, for lack of a better term, household?
I wouldn't call it square, but I was raised Catholic, Italian family,
right?
On both sides mostly, so that kind of thing was important to them, not me,
right?
But I went to Catholic school. I was an altar boy. I was a reader at church. I helped officiate funerals and weddings, all that stuff.
Did so you went to mass?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. See that I always have to delineate that when I talk to people about their upbringing, when they're like, I went to church. I'm like, you go to church, you go to mass, because it's two very different experiences.
Yes, there is. I went to mass. We went to every year midnight Christmas Eve mass.
Right. Yeah, I went to mass too. So stupid, man. I mean, I'm not trying to offend anybody's religion, but just like sitting there as a kid and like they're speaking in a language you don't understand. It's like, why am I here?
I used to play games with my eyes, like to mess with my vision. Just keep my eyes open as long as I can. I'm sitting up on the altar. The priest is doing his thing, and you got a side chair as an altar boy.
Right.
I'm looking at the red carpet on the altar and just letting my eyes phase in and out. When things start looking trippy.
Right.
When you don't blink long enough.
Right.
You got to find ways to entertain yourself when you're a kid at church.
Yeah, it's crazy. So Empire is when it really sets in for you, and I'm sure that fuels your love for and play with the figures even more. And then you ran into it, and then you ran to Jedi, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm. Well, in between Jedi and Empire was I got my first communion.
Okay.
So that ties in with what we're talking about. My parents took the $181 that I got and went shopping for Star Wars toys without me. I was pissed. Because they bought pretty much everything that I would have bought, but then they bought that rubber Yoda hand puppet.
I'm
looking at this thing, I'm like, why do I want this? I said that to my parents. I'm like 7 years old. I'm like, I don't want this. But it just annoyed me that, they took my money and did my selection choices for me.
Put your tongue to mine. The one thing I remember about like an ungrateful gift moment with my experience, my dad one time he picked me up from baseball, and I jumped in the car, and in the back he said, "There's something for you in the back," and I said, "Cool," and I grabbed this bag, brought it to the front, opened it up, and it was like two 100-piece Disney puzzles, and I was like, what is this? And he lit my ass up. I mean, I remember feeling like this, more guilt than I ever felt in mass. And I didn't understand. I think about it now because my dad didn't have a ton of money, but he wanted to do something nice for me, and but yeah, I never. He could have bought me. He could have bought me a pair of orange socks the next day. I'd have been like, finally, a nice pair of orange socks. Thank you so much. I know how hard you worked for it. Well,
I mean, you're a kid. And
yeah,
you don't know.
Exactly.
You just know what is cutting it for you.
Yeah.
And my dad did the same thing. Like when Nintendo was out, he stopped by the video store and picked me up Top Gun for NES. He rented it to play. And I'm like, why is this here? Why are you giving this? I don't like flying games or any of that. But, your parents trying is not something that you realize until you're older or a parent yourself.
Correct.
And you see it. And then when your child doesn't respond in a way that you're like, oh, must be what dad or mom felt like.
Exactly. And you don't recognize the amount of effort it took to acquire that thing. Like when I look down, sometimes I see like my kid has like a video game and it's like laying all scratched up, like game side down on the floor. And I'm like, that's 2 hours of work for me.
Yep.
You know, like
so you quantify things like that.
I do the same thing. In my head, I can't help but think, I'm like, man, I've worked for 2 hours so that you could treat this thing like a piece of trash. It drives me nuts.
Yep.
But yeah, so let's keep it moving. This is a question I like to ask because I know that the kind of alluring elements of Star Wars for me have changed over time. Like the enjoyment that I get out of it changes. For instance, when I was a kid, I would have loved Maz's castle from Force Awakens, but now I'm like, I can't get out of that place quick enough. You know, like I want, you know what I mean? So
now it's just a bar.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is it's almost like it's almost like the cantina to me. Like, don't get me wrong, I still enjoy the cantina because it comes from that place where I still remember those feelings as a child. But like, I kind of want to get out of there and get moving. And so when I was a kid, like all the monsters and creatures, like they appealed to me so much. But like as an adult, if the whole movies were nothing but Jedi and Sith and dark side and light side, like that would be where I would sink my teeth in. What was the stuff that spoke to you most when you were a kid from those movies?
I would say it was probably the adventure. I appreciated and understood the mysticism of Empire and Yoda's teachings and everything, but I think it just came down, not necessarily the space battles, maybe the armed combat.
Right.
The hand-to-hand, the lightsaber battles, even though they were kind of weak.
Right. But you don't notice that when you're 5 and you have no point of reference for anything else.
You see a light laser sword and they're fighting each other. It's like, awesome.
Yeah.
But I can remember even like in, Star Wars, probably at an early age, I was like, Ben was dispatched a little too easy.
Yeah.
I remember
seeing that fan film that just came out is awesome.
Oh my God, it's tremendous. I remember as a kid being very confused about that scene. Like, I could never tell, now as an adult, I get why I was confused, but like I could never tell if Vader actually killed him or if he did like magic trick and disappeared or, you know what I mean? And then later on, they talked about him like he was dead. So I assumed he was dead, but like, I remember not understanding that.
Like people don't disappear when they die.
Right. And I'll never forget my dad. My dad loves Star Wars, but like, he would never buy any memorabilia or anything like that. He just,
not of that generation.
No. And he was, let's see, he was 37 when the first one came out and 40 when Empire came out and simultaneously 40 when I came out. And he loved that stuff, but he kind of, he saw the deeper elements to it. And I think also since he was born in 1940 and then he lived through the 70s, I think the idea of something just being this optimistic, feel good story struck a nerve with him, after living through the Clockwork Orange era of cinema.
Yeah, 70s cinema was all dark and trying to give you a message.
Yeah. And Watergate and all that kind of stuff. Like having lived through all that, I think it offered him a breath of fresh air that he enjoyed. But I'll never forget, like, when we would watch that movie together, when Vader would step on Obi-Wan's cloak, like after he struck him down, or after Obi-Wan disappeared and the cloak falls down, and Vader would like step on the cloak. My dad would laugh hysterically at it. Like
it's ridiculous. It's like, obviously he's not there.
But he loved it. Like he thought it was such a like a cool like a tough thing to do. And he quoted Vader a lot to me as a kid. I remember if I did good in school, which was rare, but when it did happen, yep, exactly. He would always hit that. He would hit "I'm altering the deal." He would hit "Perhaps you feel you're being treated unfairly." He would,
Dad, stop using this shit against me, please.
Yeah.
did that make you love or dislike Vader more? You know?
Oh no, like it was actually, it was the best way to be reprimanded. Do you know what I mean? It was or get some bad news because it was like, oh man, like this sucks that he's altering the deal, but it's awesome that he's talking about Star Wars. You know, it was like one of those kind of ththings. Because trust me, I got plenty of them that weren't Star Wars quotes, plenty. But it was like this one thing that we shared that I do kind of value. How was your family into it at all? And I'm trying to stay for the basis of this conversation around the original trilogy a little bit longer because I know this means more to you. Was your family fans at all? Did you watch them with your family at all?
Not really. I mean, my mom is a pseudo fan. My mom was only 18 when she had me, so she's a lot younger. Mm-hmm. So, you know,
dude, your mom was living her best life out there, wasn't she? God bless.
I don't know about it. I always wonder if I hadn't happened, if they would have happened.
That's why she started going to church, started trying to get her life together.
I need to prepay for all my sins. No, I'm sorry. What was the question?
Oh, just was your family involved with it all? Did they watch it with you? No,
not at all. Gotcha. I mean, my aunt liked some characters, but just because they were cute and that's what chicks do.
Right.
Cue in on the neat things that everybody likes.
Yeah.
But my mom wasn't really into it. My dad was definitely not because he was 8 years older than my mom too.
So how old were you when you saw Return of the Jedi?
I saw it in the theater twice. My parents were actually going through a separation at that point, so I saw it once with both parents.
Score? Yep.
And you know how it is. Divorced kids will tell you that it sucks, but it works out for you.
Every once in a while.
Every once in a while you get extra toys or extra this or whatever. I saw Jedi in a theater and I liked it to a point. Well,
so that's what I wanted to get to. So let me get. How old were you?
I would have been. That was 83, so I hadn't turned 10 yet, so 9.
Okay, so you're still a kid. You know what I mean? It's not like because sometimes I think about that, like when my dad was 43. The little bears probably sat a bit different with him. You know what I mean? Than they did with me. Mm-hmm. But so. What was your mixed feelings in regard to Return of the Jedi? Talk to me about that a bit.
First, it was the bears.
Right.
Even at 9, I'm still a 9-year-old boy.
Right.
So it's like teddy bears.
Right.
But I see, how it worked and it makes sense. But really, I think, and this may be something that nobody else noticed, I just noticed how 1983 that entire production seemed. Like the hairstyles of the people, everything. Mm-hmm. Like this is definitely capturing this period of time, even though it's supposed to be a completely different time, completely different universe.
Right. There is this because so I'm the type of person that can completely separate, real world or politics with film. Mm-hmm. With one exception, I can't get past the Scientology bit with Tom Cruise for whatever reason. Like that's all I see is Scientology whenever I see him. But everything else I can separate. Mel Gibson's nonsense, easily separated. Kanye West nonsense, easily separated. Star Wars.
That's a lot of nonsense.
It's a lot of nonsense. That guy said he was Walt Disney.
In general, you don't care as long as they're producing something that you like.
Exactly. And to be fair, I kind of like my artists a little crazy.
Yeah. That's where some of this brilliance comes from.
Exactly. So the reason why I bring that up is because there's this obvious. If you look at beyond the surface, there's this obvious political parallel in the original Star Wars films with Vietnam and the idea of great technology and financial power being overthrown ultimately at the end by little bears with sticks. Mm-hmm. And while I didn't make any of those comparisons when I was a kid, I still recognized as a kid that it was the Emperor quote that used to always throw me for a loop. It was an entire legion of my best troops. And I was like, these are the best of this is the A-class team that you sent?
Your A-class got taken down by bears.
With sticks and rocks. And that is the part that even as a kid, like it wasn't something that prevented me from enjoying it, but it was always something that, like, at the end of the day, I was like, man, that's a little strange, isn't it? That they were able to be beaten by these little bears. And I mean, I'm probably 5 or 6 when I first saw it, which was 3 years after it had come out in the theater. But that part, even I wasn't as mixed bag as you were, but there was always something that seemed a little strange to me about it all as a kid.
So you probably don't remember, but hopefully you got to enjoy the Return of the Jedi chocolate cookies from Pepperidge Farm.
I don't think I did.
They were delicious.
Do you still? I do think about these little, like, merchandisable things that, like, were used to promote stuff. Like, every now and, like, the Batman cereal, the '89 Batman cereal, it was just Captain Crunch in the shape of bats. But, like, in my head, it was better than Captain Crunch ever was.
Oh, God, yeah, because it was on the box. It was Batman.
Yeah.
Ninja Turtle pies.
Dude, they had marshmallows, right? The Ninja Turtle cereal?
There's Ninja Turtle cereal. There was the little, like, pizza-shaped cheese doodle things.
Oh, God.
And it was all better than the rest of the...
Sure.
Do you remember Gremlin cereal?
No.
Oh, no. God, that was horrible. They had a...
You get more cereal if you get it wet?
Yes. It multiplies and pops out of the bowl. But I think it had, like, a peanut butter flavor to it, if I remember correctly, or they had a variety that had it, and it was hard. Terrible.
Yeah, I put it in a blender first.
Smoothie.
So let me ask you. So the Bears didn't sit right with you, which I understand. You're 3 years older than me, and there was something that I was questioning about it too. What about the Emperor? How did that strike you as a 9-year-old kid?
It was like, okay, well, we finally see him, and and I did take notice that he looked different from the original theatrical release of the hologram in Empire to this. I mean, it was a significant difference in the face.
Absolutely.
And I believe that was Clive Revel who did the portrayal in the second movie.
I'll take your word for it.
Yeah. I get a little nerdy with that shit, like Gort.
Yeah, but do you know the name of the wolf man in the cantina? Because I bet you Gort does.
Lax Sivrek.
Oh my God,
that's one of them.
And the only reason I know that is because there was a figure,
right?
And that's how he had his name,
right?
Do you know the other one?
No, I didn't even know there was another one in there. And did I pronounce it right?
Oh, yeah.
Really? I think so.
Gort,
that one seems pretty clear cut.
You have failed me for the last time. So let me say this. One of the things I'm curious about is when I can make comparisons, obviously, with Snoke and the Emperor, right? And did you feel at all like you didn't this Emperor wasn't fulfilling because you didn't know his backstories, you didn't know the prequel story, obviously, and he just came in, said some cool stuff, and then was sort of dispatched?
No.
Right.
Number one, I was younger, so that didn't enter in. Plus, in relation to Snoke, and we'll probably get into that later, but the Emperor, from the start, was the first time you heard his name mentioned, he was already in control and a badass.
Right.
He was telling me, he's dissolving the government. That's huge.
Mm-hmm.
I don't need to know what his backstory is yet. But in relation to Snoke, he comes in, he's already, wrested some control of the universe and is, trying to destroy the New Republic. But he is dispatched by the halfway point of the second movie.
Was that on purpose?
What?
At the halfway point?
Halfway?
Oh, no, sorry. No, that was not on purpose, obviously. I try to keep my punning to a minimum.
Please let it run wild. Okay, because it is something I'm curious about, and I'll be honest with you. Like, I know he's mentioned, at the table in the first one, the Emperor, but I had no, I'm watching this as a 5-year-old kid. I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about. I'm just like, oh, okay. I'm like, and honestly, I'm like, can we please get past this?
Talking about the regional governors,
right? Well, yeah. Well, explain that to my 5-year-old mind. I'm like, you're talking to me about regional governors. I'm eating a crayon.
Well, come color was it?
Blue gray or gray blue, one of the two. So like, and then like when he popped up in Empire, I remember being confused too. Like, why is Vader bowing to this guy? Get this old woman out of here. how the Emperor looked at me like an old woman, old angry woman. She looked like the old witch in the Seven Dwarfs, Snow White.
Yeah, and big craters on the eyes.
Yeah, like she didn't get, like she cried and didn't get any sleep simultaneously all night long. And now she's popping up to tell Vader what to do. I was like, get this old lady out of here and tell Vader to get back to being a badass, please.
Mm-hmm. And I think by Jedi, we'd never seen anybody shoot lightning out of their damn hands.
That's a fact.
So it's like we see him do that. Like, okay, yeah, he's big, bad, he's good.
Yeah, and his dialogue was incredible. Like he's he might be the most quoted.
Understand the reverence he was given.
Yeah,
you see the people marching around him, and the space given, and the fear that people. You understand that from just your parental relationships and figures of authority, even at a young age. And
I think also at a young age, you don't care as much. As long as they do some cool stuff, that's good enough.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So moving into the dark era, unless you want to comment on Caravan of Courage at all, because I know that's something.
No.
Okay. All right.
But the thing that happens between Jedi and the dark era is, number one, Transformers comes out.
Okay.
So that instantly, since there was no more movies coming other than Ewok things on ABC,
right?
There was Transformers, and that was a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
I think for all of us.
Mm-hmm.
So I had how like certain stores like Sears and JCPenney would get certain things that were licensed just to them.
Right.
I had a R2-D2 toy box. It was basically pressboard and a plastic lid. And I had all my Star Wars stuff in that toy box. It was huge, probably like a 20-some gallon trash can. I took all that stuff, put it out on the curb. My parents didn't even stop me.
Wow.
Yeah.
How old were you when you did that?
Like 10 or 11.
Jeez.
I can very easily cut things off. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's the first instance I can remember me doing that in my life. But I can't believe that my parents didn't even look at that and weren't pissed, didn't say a thing to me, like about all that money that they spent.
Right.
Just out on the curb.
That's funny that you even had this kind of, out with the old, in with the new, kind of mentality.
Mm-hmm. I don't know where it came from.
See, my experience is different because it was all at the same time for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I didn't transition from Transformers or from Star Wars to Transformers. I was seeing them both around the same time.
Yeah.
So, like, everything, like He-Man, G.I. Joe, like, it was all this simultaneous onslaught of commercialism, I guess, ultimately.
Yeah, and really, I mean, I guess I was, like, the Petri dish generation for that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, things hit or miss. Like, I couldn't care less about Masters of the Universe or G.I. Joe.
Right.
I'm like a serial monogamist in my collections. Like, even today, I don't collect anything but Transformers.
Right. Serial monogamist. I like that. It's funny because, like, I didn't play much with Transformers as a kid. I loved Transformers. Like, I had, I had the toys, and then I had the radio and the big wheel and, the whole bit. But I didn't play a whole lot with them because they weren't fun to play with for me. Like, I would go through the transformations of them, and then I would just sort of sit them around one another and let it ride.
See, I love that. I love the transforming when as a kid. I can remember that specifically. Now, like, I pray for them to come in robot mode in a box.
Right. Well, also now they have more of an action figure element.
Mm-hmm.
Where the originals didn't. The originals, like, if you got a leg to move, it felt like you had the Rolls Royce of a Transformer.
Yeah, without breaking.
Yeah. You were pretty much guaranteed the arms. Like, yep. But that was really it. And it used to drive me nuts. Whereas the Star Wars and the G.I. Joe and the He-Man, my problem with He-Man was I could never get any of them to stand for more than 5 seconds before they started failing. But the Star Wars and the G.I. Joe for me were a lot more time consuming play wise because they had that action figure element. Except in the problem. And I think the reason why Star Wars stood out to me was because like the articulation sucked, but I can make them kick, I can make them punch, and I can make them turn their heads, and I could stand them up. Whereas the G.I. Joe, I love the action figure element, but if I wasn't playing with them, I just laid them down. I didn't even try. I was like, oh, God. Especially if you had one that was well played out. I'll never forget I had the Cobra Trooper, like the black mask, blue suit, blue helmet, looked like Cobra Commander. You know what I mean? That guy. And there was not one joint on his body that would hold position. It was like a rag doll. It was like those little wooden people that people use for reference when they're drawing. That's what it was like.
Or one of them things like that sits on a little base and you push a button and it moves around.
Yes. Yeah, just like that. And I had a Storm Shadow that was pretty much the same way.
Since I didn't get into G.I. Joe, I didn't get to experience the, I guess, elation from going from 4 to 5 points of articulation to, like 8?
Yeah.
On a G.I. Joe figure?
It was head, shoulder, elbow, waist, thigh, knee. So 6, I guess. Well, if and then 2 elbows, 2 shoulders. But
well, I mean, it's like the arms, like you had like your equivalent of like your bicep swivels and things too.
Did you? I can't even remember.
Yeah. And just the way that they were attached, like you could twist and turn.
Oh, okay.
Hold up Vader's arm and you got the lightsaber. There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, I know we can all picture it in our head right now.
Oh yeah. And I hated the fact, like I always took the lightsabers just like the blade part just completely out because I hated the fact that they looked the way they did, and I was like, ugh, I'll just imagine the blade when I turn it on.
Always hanging out too.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all the way in.
Like he's just walking around with the stormtrooper's lightsaber out for no reason, like an idiot.
And why did they have telescoping ends?
Yeah, that was strange. So, okay, so let's enter into the dark times. So you're getting into Transformers now. You're a serial monogamist. You threw all your Star Wars stuff out. Mom and Dad didn't care, and you're still collecting Transformers to this day. Was there ever a hiccup in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I turned teenager, and as most of us do, that stuff goes away.
Mm-hmm.
We're interested in chasing something else.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I got there was no collecting in between the ages, I would say, of like 14. I probably collected up and played with the stuff until I was 13, well past the other kids in my age group. So I was always kind of like the nerd or whatever of the class. And it was a small class. It was only 18 kids. So you get that stigma. It's hard to shake.
Yeah. Did you get into Turtles at all? I asked because you would have been a little bit older. And it might not have...
No, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
My youngest brother, he got into it. And at the time, Burger King had a promotion for video cassettes, like of the cartoon show. Like you go there and you pay $1 and order a sandwich and you get a video. I watched my little brother. He's 13 years younger than me. And when he was a little toddler, all he wanted to do was watch the same 2 episodes of the Turtles.
The first 2?
And over and over. It was... The Great Baldini. I can't remember what the other one was.
They were all episodes.
They were random
later
episodes
in the show.
Yeah, they just took them out and said, "Hey, let's just put this one on a video cassette and give it in a Happy Meal." But that and The Little Mermaid.
And they had some of the worst like Happy Meal toys too, or Kids Club toys, whatever it would have been. Burger King. But I had. It was like a green turtle shell. And I remember you would slide it apart, and then it was the 4 turtles inside, like as if it was like a picture frame you're looking at. And I used to love that thing, but I remember looking at it later. I'm like, what the hell is this? What do you do with this?
So did you get into the video games at all? Like, what did you do Star Wars wise from 83 to 99?
So 83 to, I'd say, 94, I did basically nothing Star Wars other than play the NES games, the SNES, things like that.
Right.
For Star Wars.
And
Yep.
I'd never been to a convention or any of that, but that comes a little later. So from 90, was it 4? I think when Just Toys Bend-Ems came out. I saw those in Toys R Us, and it was the first Star Wars stuff I'd seen on the shelves in years.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pick up a couple of these, and that snowballed into an entire room in an apartment being a Star Wars collection
So you got back into it.
Where did you say you saw them?
at Toys R Us.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was like the multi-pack, like the 4 or 5. And this is the period of Power of the Force 2 and all the card variants, the figure variants.
Right.
That mean nothing now that were everything then.
Right.
Just hunting down the half-circle Boba Fett hand, the TIE fighter with the 2 zeros after the serial number, all that stuff.
Wow. How did you know about all that stuff in like a pre-internet era?
Actually, it was just the beginning of the internet era.
Yeah.
And you were like, you were on it?
For me. Yep.
Dude, I didn't
I
get
was
an
on
email till I was like 20. I'm like,
Well,
I was like, I'm
went
not
to
doing
a
that.
friend's house. I went to a friend's house, and he showed me how you could get pornography on the
Oh,
computer.
I gotcha.
And I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't my sole thing, but then, the first webpage I went to, I searched out a Star Wars thing. And my first AOL screen name was, I think, either Jawas 4 or Tuscan.
Huh.
One or the other. But yeah, I was on AOL way, way back. Dial-up, 14.4 modems.
Even just the dawn of the internet there, you have magazines, and that's how I found out that they were even relaunching the toy line.
Mm-hmm.
Through the Star Wars Insider was the first time I'd seen it.
It was funny. Last show you had Josh on. He was talking about Bantha tracks. I was like, yeah. I got my patch. I got actually during a period they sold in the stores like 8x10 glossies. You would buy blind packs, like you would buy trading cards. And I got a bunch of those on my wall. All that stuff. Oh, that was bringing back some memories.
Did you so you collected this line? Did you collect it up until the prequels? Like, did you collect it up until 99, or do you remember a stopping point for it?
Well, I'd gotten married after my first semester in college and subsequently dropped out. But I didn't want to go to college anyway. That's not a sob story. Right. The sob story really is the wedding. So I married my high school girlfriend, and we were together for a while. And it ended badly, but my entire relationship with her coincided with the Star Wars stuff. And as things went bad in our relationship, that became a source of a problem. So it also heaped on some feelings of resentment toward the stuff for me because we got separated and I had to move. I had to box up all that crap. And it was like 18 to 20 gallon Rubbermaid totes full of stuff.
Right.
And when I tell you that I moved that collection to 6 different places, I'm not lying.
Wow.
I just recently finally got rid of it all. And I'm talking about like $10,000 to $15,000 worth of merchandise that I paid, full retail back in the day. I sold it for $800. I just wanted it gone.
Was it all still on card and everything? I get the impression it was.
All the POTF2 stuff was.
Yeah.
Everything. All the figures, anything that was a tie-in. Like I bought like markers. I bought cake pans. Anything that was Star Wars.
Right.
I had it.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So 99 comes and you see the trailer for The Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
What is your reaction?
I think I saw the first time on 60 Minutes, if I remember correctly. Wasn't that where it dropped?
I don't recall. I saw it at Waterboy.
That sounds right, but I don't remember which trailer that was.
It was. I think it was with. Was it Meet Joe Black? Was the movie? It was.
That's the movie that I remember. The trailer being with, and people left that movie as soon as the trailer happened.
Oh yeah,
it was a terrible movie too. So.
But going back to the question, I'm sitting there and tuning in. This is when you had to tune in for things.
Right.
Yeah.
So 60 Minutes comes on. I'm sitting there waiting for it, and I watch it, and I'm like, "Ooh, this is pretty cool." I mean, they made it out to be
epic.
Exactly, epic. And what we got was okay, but not what I wanted, but obviously I'm looking at it as an adult now.
Right. So how old are you in 99?
99, I would have been 26.
Okay.
25 when it came out. So yeah.
So you see it.
I'm a late birthday, so every time I have to redo the math.
No, I am too. So you see it, and what is your reaction walking out?
Went and saw it with my best friend and my mom. Actually, my mom just wanted to see it because it was a new thing, and she wanted to see it opening day.
Right.
But I went and bought tickets on my work break, and met up with them afterwards, and walked in, and watched it, and like a couple of things, like Jar Jar, obviously that was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And just some of the hand-fisted humor that they tried to push into that, and it still goes on to this day. I don't like that. I realize that the original movies were funny; they had funny parts, but I don't think they went out of their way to try and make it funny.
I agree. I think there is a whole conversation that's worth having about Star Wars humor done right and Star Wars humor done wrong. Mm-hmm. And
I mean, if you want to see done wrong, all you got to do is pull up the scene of C-3PO in the Geonosis laboratory or the
correct
assembly line.
Correct. Even though
one-liner after one-liner, it's like, come on, man.
And then
this is such a drag.
It's such a drag. What does it say? Like, what does he say? There's another like super pun one when like his
I think it had something to do with his head.
Yeah,
beside himself.
Yeah, I'm beside myself. Yep, that was the one. But you know what I do like from that scene? Like 2 lines from him. I love machines making machines. How perverse. I love that, and I love it's a nightmare. Like, it's like something like my buddies and I say all the time. Like anytime
when he's holding on to that thing,
yes,
with his little baby droid fingers, that's one of the things that really takes me out of the movie. I'm like, he can't do that. He can barely hold the comm link in the first movie.
That whole sequence plays like a video game.
It looks like a video game.
Yeah,
and the CGI is not great. Like, and R2, using his thrusters and blasting up and everything, like all that just looks so fake.
Yeah, but like even the parts with like Padme and Anakin like jumping between the things that are crushing, you know what I mean? Like and then you roll underneath, you wait. It's just like a video game.
It's like, oh, we're going to do this now.
And I had that feeling in Rogue One too, slightly when Jen is trying to get up through the ceiling and that door keeps closing. That feels very much like a video game to me, also. But let's not get too far ahead. So, but let me ask you a question real quick. The BB-8 with the lighter for the thumbs up, does that feel like Star Wars humor to you? Done right?
That's marginal.
See, that one feels right to me, and I can't like put my finger on like the recipe for right and wrong. But
I think if they would have stopped short of the flame, if they just like extended a thing out of him just to give the thumbs up, I think that would be good for me.
Okay. All right, so let's continue. So we're not crazy about Jar Jar, and we're not crazy about the kind of ham-fisted humor. Mm-hmm. What else are your thoughts and kind of reactions? Seeing this as a 26-year-old, 25-year-old man, well after your kind of hardcore love affair with Star Wars has gone through some ups and downs, and this has got to be because I was 18 and I loved it, and most people I knew loved it. It wasn't until much later that I started hearing that people hated it. And now I kind of have a much more clear vision of it. But tell me more about how you felt about, because there's a lot of differences, right? There's all the politics stuff, and obviously the lightsaber duels are different and all that kind of stuff. So just talk about it for a bit.
Yeah. This is obviously, it's setting the tone. So you have to, the exposition has to be a little dry or a little slow. So this movie overall was slower paced, I think, in my viewing of it than others. And I did appreciate the political drama by this point. Mm-hmm. I mean, as you age, obviously more different things become more important to you or things become less important to you. And, for me, a fair bit of cynicism had built up. So I'm walking into this and seeing things, excited that it's the first Star Wars for years, other than the special editions. But, just seeing that, it was an awesome experience. So I wasn't disappointed. It's just there was a couple takeaways from it that I just didn't care for. And really a small minor thing in the very beginning when the was it Newt Gunray? Is that his name?
Yeah.
I don't know their species, whatever they are.
Nemodian.
Yeah, Trade Federation people.
Yep.
When they said send the droid decos, I'm like, what the hell is a droid deco? I couldn't understand what the word was. You ever hear somebody say a word and you're like, what is that word?
Right.
So it took me out for like a good 2 minutes because my brain's trying to figure out what he said. But then, obviously you see what it is. I'm like, okay.
There's a funny thing about that too, because they call it droid deca. It's droid deca. They can't pronounce things. Maybe it'll end up in a game one day. But immediately Obi-Wan sees it, destroyers.
And calls it a destroyer. That was what the confusing thing for me.
And that's a problem with Star Wars in general, where they have multiple names for things, and you can't always be sure. You have Tusken Raiders and you have Sand People.
And native Tatooine.
That's real life, though.
What's the proper name?
It's real life.
Native Tatooine.
There's truth to that. But at the same time, like this is a fantasy land where, we're removed from it. We don't know anything about it. So when you know nothing, you really know nothing.
Exactly.
So it'd be nice to just know something. And
you know what?
I don't need to know everything about Star Wars, when I'm watching a movie, but I want to know what something is. I don't want to know 5 names.
Left that in there thinking that no one would give a shit. But then there's people like me that sees it like, what? What is that?
Well, you have George Lucas calling them the Goongas. So, yeah.
Well, that's the thing, is that like George Lucas creatively is like, he's a genius, but if his genius with no kind, like, so I imagine George Lucas's mind like a bowling alley, and his genius needs the bumpers.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's his average?
That's the thing. Like, if George Lucas goes unchecked, if there's no Mrs. Lucas to be a bumper, or no Lawrence Kasdan to be a bumper, and all you have is Rick McCullum sucking at the teat, like, what you get is episode 1 and episode 2.
And it left completely unchecked, you're probably going to end up with the Jar Jar Binks holiday special.
It's a shame that Katie Lucas wasn't a little older to be writing some of the material for the prequels, because she's a genius.
Right. Self-proclaimed, I hear. There's something to that. It's like, it's like watching a maniac, like, just, somebody let the straitjacket off of him. Mm-hmm. And that's what you get as a result. And we're expected and conditioned, I guess, to see success as like an instant thing. You don't see all the failures. Correct.
That most people do. So, like, not everything that everybody is gonna do is gonna be great.
Right. So what did you think about? So let me ask you about some of the more endearing characters that have kind of come out of that movie. Ben Quadinaros, for instance. No, that's just
Ben Quadinaros.
Padme.
In that movie, she was just fine, because she was young and whatever. But by Attack of the Clones, on Naboo, I was damn in love with her.
Right.
So Padme was fine.
She, if you think about how old that young lady was during that role, she really, when she's in her like full blown queen mode, she does command a presence. And I just watched that movie recently, and I was like, man, she still seems like somebody you should be following her orders, like when she talks.
That's amazing that 13-year-old or 14-year-old, whatever she was supposed to be at that age,
right, in
the movie, is a ruler, but that's what they do in their culture,
right? And I believed it. It's I bought it. What about another? So we have Ben Quadinaros, Padme, C.O. Bibble. I'm kidding. The Darth Maul.
Darth Maul, I was extremely disappointed in.
Yeah.
Now I know he returns in later portions of the universe, but if we are just left to examine the movies in a vacuum, Darth Maul was a huge disappointment.
I agree. And like Gordon and I say, and Gordon and I both like the Clone Wars and the EU stuff and all that kind of stuff. But at some level, if it's not in the movie, it doesn't count.
Yep. It simply does not exist.
Yep. So talk about your disappointment regarding him, and I'm going to share a story as well.
Okay, there's twofold disappointment. One, I think the scene when Qui-Gon and Anakin are running back to the ship, and Darth Maul just comes out of nowhere, just seems like out of nowhere. It just seems like a bullet that's shot into the movie. It doesn't feel like it flows correctly. There should have been like an extra 30 seconds leading up to them walking through or whatever. Then they see something, and then they start running.
Now, he was just waiting on the other side of that door. What was he doing?
Before
they got there.
Oh, you mean in at the end?
Yeah.
Dude, just waiting for that grand moment. He's
just standing around whistling.
He's like, are they coming?
But
are they coming?
I mean,
here they come! Oh, and then like right before they're getting close, he's like, "Fuck! I forgot to put the hood on." He's like scrambling to get the hood up, like to make it look perfect.
he gets
Stuck on his horns,
pulling some nits off the horns. Rooming them down the bottom, just like, are they getting here? Looking at his watch that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
But yeah, the lightsaber battle was, awesome, especially the dual lightsaber. I mean, number one, that's the first time we ever see that.
Yes.
Other than
for sure.
like if it happened in fiction or something.
Yeah, I don't remember it happening in fiction up until that point.
No, it may have done so with like the ancient Jedi stuff, those comic books. There may be a situation where that happened, but I can't remember. But yeah, on the screen, that was awesome. Mm-hmm. And just seeing how easily he died, though.
See,
but that's hubris. That's the theme of the entire thing.
His Darth Maul is such like a brilliant character design, and I was obsessed with him even before seeing the movie, and seeing the blade ignite from both sides in the trailer had an immediate impact on me, and I've told the story 1,000 times, but I remember going back to my buddy's house. Like my wife and I left Waterboy and went straight to my buddy's house, and we're telling him about the trailer. And I was like, there's this dude. He looks like the devil, and he has a lightsaber. It comes out of both sides. Like I was just, I didn't even know what I was talking about. I just knew it looked awesome. And I remember there was a trailer. There was like a TV spot that came out, and it had like him voicing dialogue over top of it. Gord, do you remember that?
The tone poem.
Yes, and it was like fear. Fear attracts the fearful, the strong, the weak, the innocent. Fear is my ally. And I thought that was so hard. And then when I was watching the movie and they start talking about, fear is a path to the dark side, fear leads to anger. I was like, oh my God, I see what they're setting up here. They're really gonna show how one walks and ends up on this path and the kind of phases and everything. And I kept waiting for Maul to say it in the movie, and he never said it.
Yeah.
And then when he was cut in half, Laura was like, oh, what? And I was like, no, he can't be dead because he hasn't said that part yet. Like that, I was telling myself that. Even
you didn't realize that there's editing.
Yeah. When his two parts went down the chute, I was like, oh, he'll be back in a second because he's got to say this line. This movie without this line is not the movie I signed up for. And it messed with me. Even though I liked the movie, knowing that character was gone, you ever have? I know this is an extreme stretch, but it is real to some extent. But you ever have a loved one pass? And you go through the kind of initial grieving of just the sadness of it. And then you get to this place at some point where you're like, holy shit, I'll never have their breakfast again. Or, I will never sit out on this bench again, or whatever the case may be. Like this specific memory that was kind of a ritual for you and this other person. And the idea that will never happen again, like the finality of it. That sat in with me for Maul's death at a certain point. I was like, holy shit, that's it. It's over. And I wrestled with it. It was a bummer for me.
Your consolation prize is you get Dracula as the next Sith Lord.
or as I like to call him, Saruman.
Saruman.
Can I make a...
I like Scaramanga. The man with the golden gun.
Nicely done.
He's got 3 nipples. That's weird.
I want to make a blanket statement that goes all over the entire trilogy. I guess with much less the first three, 4, 5, and 6. The use of known actors bothered me.
Ooh, that's an interesting point.
Like especially Laura Dern. She's a fantastic actress, but just seeing her in that long neck looking damn dress and just out of nowhere, her, Jimmy Smits, who else? It's like, come on,
I mean,
man.
you know,
Like,
Natalie. I was well aware of Natalie Portman only because I'd seen The Professional like 1,000 times.
But even like that was still an early thing for her.
Correct.
Like Laura Dern and Jimmy Smits are established. Like Jimmy
Correct.
Smits was known in the business as the guy you get to add on to your series or movie when it's in its 5th season and failing.
Right.
But all the movies kind of had that, like some big name actor, and maybe I'm not thinking of anybody for Return of the Jedi, but you know, that was the purpose of Peter Cushing and Obi-Wan in the original movie.
Yeah.
Like have something of a draw for the common person.
But it's one of those things like, you know, the political overtones that you just don't realize until you're older, and then maybe it bothers you, maybe it doesn't. It did me.
The one that never took me out of it was probably Sam Jackson, and I mean,
oh God, no.
But he's like a chameleon. Like, as much as I feel like Sam Jackson is a character all himself,
Absolutely.
Mace Windu just felt right.
And the moment
feel
that you-
weird.
as long as you create the right space for him to be in, he always fits.
Yeah.
Like,
Yep.
you know, him as Ki-Adi-Mundi doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? But like, like
Him with a Conan.
him in a place where he puts a lightsaber to somebody's throat and says, "This party's over." I'm like, "Yep, sign me up for a bit of that."
See, I mean, I'm destroying my argument the more we talk about this, because I mean, there's no bigger than Sam Jackson in these things lately. But just certain actors, like you said earlier in the show, you can divorce them from whatever it is and just enjoy them in what you're seeing them in.
Right.
But certain other ones, like, you know, unfortunately, Laura Dern and Jimmy Smits, I wasn't having it.
It's so to me, like, Jimmy Smits was a little kind of like jarring for me. Laura Dern in and of itself doesn't really, because I know she's a big actress and I know she's an amazing actress. I just watched her in Big Little Lies. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but it's incredible, and her performance is like it's insane. But
First or second season, I haven't watched it. My wife was watching it.
Yeah, I just finished the second season recently, but
Okay.
she's incredible. She's incredible in that movie. But I mean, at the time when I saw Last Jedi, I'd only seen her in Jurassic Park. So like, it's kind of the same thing with Natalie Portman, where it's like I know she's a thing, but I only really had this connection to her in this one particular thing, and it's easily like overlooked. But I do know what you mean, and I do think that it works better with unknowns. I mean, not for nothing. I mean, I know Christian Bale was kind of known at the time of Batman Begins, but like, I think he wasn't known well enough where he's probably my favorite Batman on screen, because I knew I still saw Michael Keaton as 89 Batman, and I still saw Ben Affleck as, you know, Snyderverse Batman. And I did find Christian Bale easier to kind of sign on to and just believe that this was Bruce Wayne. I think you are on to something there.
And I mean, these characters in anything but like live action are just the characters. But when, you know, you have a different writer, a different director in movies, and obviously a different actor, they bring a whole different slant to things.
Right.
So you either have to accept it or just completely outright reject it.
I keep thinking about Gort mentioning Alec Guinness. I'm just imagining them at the time. Like, look, we need to get a big name onto this thing. Alec Guinness said he'll do it. And it's like, well, how much is he gonna cost? Oh my God. Look, just put a praying mantis monster over there. All right. The original plans are out. But yeah.
Now, do you know, and maybe I'm a little mistaken, do you know what Alec Guinness made from the first movie?
I do not.
I don't either.
No, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. And I think he took a deal of $50,000, but he was offered 5% of the gross, and he thought this movie was not going to do well. So I think you know what he took.
Wow.
And he made a mistake. Yeah.
Well, I guess he looked at it from the wrong point of view.
Yes.
Wow.
But he didn't know about that certain point of view until Return of the Jedi, so it's forgiven.
Correct. So at this time, getting back to you, did you buy any of the prequels merchandise?
No, at that point, I'd completely been done collecting. Everything was in the boxes.
They didn't have talking, dancing Jar Jar Banks until
Dude,
God, no.
I had it, Gort. I had it. I had the Jar Jar Bank and the Darth Maul Bank. God bless. What a sad time.
It's hard to quantify how I feel about Star Wars because it's such a huge part of my life. I mean, my tattoo on me is, a Tusken Raider with a bunch of other things around it. But, I like it so much that I decided to ink it into my skin. So that's telling you something.
Right.
And it's the only tattoo I've got. I liken myself kind of like an ex-priest, or maybe even like, Luke when he closed himself off from the Force. That's how I feel about Star Wars.
Huh.
I still love it. It's still always a part of me, but I don't care anymore.
What part? At what point did you get to that?
It happened around my divorce.
Oh, so it's all of that is tied together.
Yeah, it's all muddy and murky, and so much resentment built in. And I don't want to, dive deep into it, but that's why I'm away from it. Plus the fact that I'm buying cake pans, I'm buying markers, I'm buying all this stuff, and I couldn't stop myself.
Right.
So I had to either completely stop or just go all in again. And I couldn't go in all in again, especially now that Disney owns it. When they start marketing Maybelline makeup to girls for Star Wars stuff, I'd already checked out, but that's like, are you kidding? Seriously?
Does that bother you?
It doesn't bother me, but Disney's monetization of their properties does.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why?
I don't know. I have weird things about me. Like, I'm basically a loner, even though I want to be part of things. Once more than like 5 people, or like on a global scale, like 100 million people or whatever, are into something, that sours it for me. Like Game of Thrones, when it first came out, Sopranos, everybody's talking about it. I want nothing to do with it.
So you like the band before you like Metallica before the Black Album?
Yeah, but I'm not, I don't, like, I like Saint Anger. I think it's a good album. Everybody hates it. But like, I don't completely eschew things. It's just, I'll get it on the back end. I don't live through the whole excitement of things. Like, anytime anything big comes up, like the Avengers Endgame, I'm like, shut up already. Because I'm tired of seeing it.
Why do you think that there's something psychological there? You realize that, right?
Yes, believe me.
Why do you think that that's there? Why do you think, what is it that's causing the resentment of things that are popular?
Well, years of therapy have told me.
Yeah, let's get to that.
That is because I was picked on when I was a little kid. So, that stuck with me. And like always feeling like an outsider in a small group of people, continues to this day. Like, I know you guys and like I'll see you at NJCC or whatever, but I won't bother you because I think in essence, whatever my conversation with you is just a bother. Like Gord will tell you, like we were just at NJCC and like I'm walking around, I'm like not talking to anybody other than him and a couple people that I know, and even those are quick conversations, like attack and go. You know what though? That's a bit of a blur for me because at certain points of that kind of show, my table ends up being extremely busy. I don't get time to focus on anything, and
plus all the time you had to spend counting that money.
Oh, dude, that's not even a joke. But
I know. I heard you did quite well.
Yeah. Oh, I did.
I was privileged to be right there when that deal
you saw it
happened. Yep.
And the thing is, I miss out on the experience of getting to hang out with everybody because, we all say the fandom is not just like toys and collecting and all that. Like, it is the people, and that's why I go to these things. But I'm not getting to see the people. And next time I'm not doing a table, like I want to hang out with people because I'm missing out on an opportunity and an experience. See, I went to DairyCon this past April, and it was a completely different situation because those guys had tables and I was behind the table. So it was more fun for me, I guess. It makes sense because
I'm better behind the scenes. I'm the one getting shit together. I'm the one doing the art. I'm doing this, doing that, making the thing work. That's my strong suit. But yet, the fandom being, a community is something that I struggle with. Mm-hmm. I want to be a part of it, but I can't get over myself.
Huh. I mean, that's pretty fascinating stuff. Like, so you. Let me see if I'm reading this right. So, as a young person, you felt on the outside, and mm-hmm. the things that were, or the people that were on the inside, were harmful to you. So now you view things in that same light when things are on the inside.
Yes, I think probably the biggest turning point was, like, I had a best friend as a kid. Mm-hmm. He was my best friend. I wasn't his best friend. And when I found that out, that kind of crushed me.
No, that's painful shit for a kid.
But yeah, this is a lighthearted show.
No. No. But it's real. Like that's always the best stuff, is when you get to some real place. So mm-hmm. I can give you one slight comparison that I had. There was a kid I grew up with. His name was Michael Parasino. His family was close with my family. Like, we were like cousins, but weren't. And I mentioned him, like, so he moved away when I was like 5 or 6, and like just to the other side of town. But when you're like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever it was, like the other side of town, it might as well be Afghanistan, Mm-hmm. And when he moved away, like, I carried his name with me, like it would be 10 years later, 15 years later, and I'd be like, Michael Parasino, that's my guy, mm-hmm. I would still mention him, even though I hadn't spoken to him in over a decade. And a buddy of mine bumped into him. Like, he played sports, and Michael, I think it was baseball, and Michael played baseball. I played baseball as a kid, but I was out of it by this point. And he was like, dude, I know one of your closest friends as a kid, and he said my name, and the dude didn't even know who he was talking about.
Oh,
and that crushed me, because I carried that name with me forever, mm-hmm. And then, and I don't blame him, because he hadn't, he was 7, 8 years old last time he talked to me. He's now like 18, 19 years old, and he's mm-hmm. had 10 years worth of memories and friends and girls and everything else between those 2 points where he didn't even remember me. But
that's rough.
But I get it, though. I get why it's crushing. And it's a shame, because I have a bit of that too. It's not for the same reasons, but sometimes if the wave is too big, I can't deal with it. Like, I have to assess it later on. And then in other moments, like, I'm part of the wave. And then in other moments, like, I'll root for a guy for so long, and then he'll catch a wave, and I'll celebrate it. Even if the music or the movie or whatever, the career goes way left of the things that have made me love them, I'll celebrate that success just because I'm happy for it, like genuinely happy for them.
Mm-hmm.
But I
can't. Can feel joy for other people, mm-hmm. and I do. I describe myself as somebody who is not overly out of their way to help somebody, but if you ask me, I will do anything for you, and I will do nothing to try and hurt you.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, because like, it's also at the same point, it's like this one thing that you did hold near and dear that was always part of a wave, mm-hmm. and the wave really never subsided. It mellowed, but it never went away.
Yep. And that's why I was able to, still want to go to the Star Wars on opening weekends and everything, just because it's so part of me that I can't mm-hmm. divorce it.
And I'd like to jump in there and say something about that too. Now, professionally, you're a graphic designer, right?
Sign maker, graphic designer, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's part of the business. Now, I had asked you before the show had fully launched if you could help make a design, and you did. Mm-hmm. And it looks phenomenal. Like, I fell in love with it, and you went above and beyond anything that I asked you to do, because I had simple vision. But when I asked you for an Empire Strikes Back style logo from the, like the Gone with the Wind poster, mm-hmm. You already had a logo that looked like that for your own business on a business card. And that's just more of that. Like, your love for Star Wars never went away, right up to the point where you used it as part of your business.
Mm-hmm. It's like, a family. you may have, some brothers or sisters or whatever that you don't really talk to, but you're not going to hurt them. You don't hate them. You're happy if they do well. And every once in a while, you'll see them.
It's powerful, man. But I wanted to get back to this one thing, and you used the term like right in the midst of it, which I find interesting. Where you say, yeah, you had to divorce yourself from it. And here's this thing that you'd kind of ridden away for the whole time. You've gone through some ups and downs, but it was always a part of you. And then it becomes a hindrance at the same exact time that you're going through one of the most, difficult times of your life, I would imagine. And then
it was a relief and terrible at the same time.
And then it's all simultaneously tied together, and it's like trying to get the milk out of the eggs, Yep,
it ain't happening.
Yeah. That's fucking fascinating. So let's move into Attack of the Clones then. Do you go
Attack of the Clones was unique in the fact that it's the first movie in the Star Wars franchise, and I think the first movie I ever saw someplace that was not my hometown. I went on vacation with my best friend. This one actually was my best friend. He's dead now, but
sorry to hear that.
I'm sorry to hear
we
that.
went out to Phoenix. I just picked somewhere. I wanted to go on vacation with him, just take a little quick weekend, 4-day trip or whatever. And I opened up a map and I said, where have I never been before? Which was a lot of places, still is. And I'm like, you know what? Phoenix, let's go there. So we just went, and that was the opening weekend, Attack of the Clones. We got into town, got to the hotel, and we're looking around like, okay. And Phoenix is huge. I had no idea. We were on the outskirts of Phoenix, which is 20 minutes outside of everything. So we're like, what are we going to do? Well, I guess we'll go into town. Then we saw the movie theater and want to go see the movie? So we saw it twice while we were in the span of 4 days while we were there.
Really?
And I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, people hate this movie for some reason, and I don't get it. It's a middle portion of a story that has a lot of action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And, they're fleshing out the relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin to show you of some of the adventures they got in, so that way it shows you the bond that they had.
Dude,
it becomes a payoff later when you rewatch number 4.
Mm-hmm. There's one of the things I love about having these conversations is we talked to Josh last week, and it's his least favorite. Can't get past it soon enough. And then we talked to you, and you see this endearing element to it. And I talked to some people, and they'll hate Return of the Jedi. Or I talked to other people, they hate Last Jedi. I'll talk to other people, and they love Force Awakens. Or everybody, all these movies, there's very few of them that everybody sees the same way.
See, I shouldn't be confused by this or surprised at it at all, because if you spend any time of a one day on social media, you will see so many varying opinions that you probably didn't even think existed.
Mm-hmm.
You can post something innocuous, and I'm going to use a real world example. I posted something in a cafe the other day just as a quick little stupid joke to Greg, and the fandom lost their mind.
I thought it was funny, by the way, for what it's worth.
Thank you. It was stupid. It was just a quick thing because Greg's not in my group because I was going to post it there. But I'm like, okay, where does Greg go? He goes in a cafe. So I put it in there, and by an hour or two later, there's 25 posts. I'm like, really?
Yeah, that's why I was a little disappointed when you say you try to keep the puns to a minimum, because I've seen your work. Yeah, no, I think, there's this whole other conversation to that social media has given everybody a voice, and does everybody deserve a voice? And I know that's a terrible thing to say, but sometimes
the point is there are mindsets out there that you don't even think existed.
Right.
How are you getting that from this?
Right.
Where are you putting these two things together? So that's the same thing with people's viewing of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're saying, people will see this movie and love it, and other people will see it and hate it.
Yeah. And I still there's parts of that movie that drag to me, like C-3PO's head, for instance, but there. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. But there,
that's good.
But that lightsaber, when you see all those lightsabers turn on in that stadium, that makes me feel a way. And there's very few moments that give me that feeling to that magnitude. but it still feels good. And the clone ships coming in, and Yoda says the most Yoda line ever. It's so Yoda that it sounds terrible. Around the survivors, a perimeter create is like one of my favorite things ever, because it's like it's almost like seeing like a David Blaine, or something, and he's showing you that he can juggle, and then at some point he finally shows you the magic trick, and it's like, dude, you are in touch with the dark arts. There's something being so something. Like seeing the Notorious Big eat a hamburger or something. Like, dude, you're in your element. And I love that about that moment. Now, one of my other favorite lines from that movie, which I think often goes unnoticed, is it's very subtle, but it says a lot about that character, and it's from it's also simultaneously Gort's favorite line. How do you feel about the Yoda scream?
Scream, I get it. It's a little much, but they wanted to show that Yoda had a little badass streak in him. Mm-hmm. But the whole thing that I'm fine with it overall, but the ricochet rabbit of him bouncing all over the place, that kind of, it's like bing, 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 bing.
Yeah. It's so funny, man, because Josh said the same thing last week. Like it drove him nuts. And I love that part. Like it's one of those movies where like it's not that I don't enjoy the movie, I do, but I really watch that movie for that part. Like, and that's why, like you're saying, like different points of view and different, the way that something sits with you. And it's like from the moment that he opens up that cloak and the camera's kind of panning around him, like in this circular motion, and the music is ramping up until he puts it away real quick and grabs that thing from falling on Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's my favorite part of that movie.
It was like everybody in the theater. I think we all had a collective gasp.
Yeah.
Like, ooh.
And I remember there was an interview that I read with George Lucas. I can't remember what it was in. It might have been Entertainment Weekly or whatever, the Entertainment Magazine, or it could have even been Insider, where he said, this movie, you're going to learn why they call him Master. And like, I remember like thinking to myself when he grabbed the lightning and then kind of put it in his pocket like a kiss, that I was scared that might have been it. So when he pulled that blade out, I was like, good night. So, but you enjoyed the movie. What did you think about Count Dooku as a replacement?
It just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Because of his age.
Yeah. Too old to begin the training.
Exactly. if 20-year-old Luke is too old, this guy, come on.
Well, I mean, at the core of it, though, when you
he was
look at it from a
right.
big picture, though, he was always after Anakin. I think that there's something about that's clear, one way or another.
Yeah.
And this guy was in a position of power. He's a count,
Yes.
Yeah.
He has really a whole government body there with this notion to separate. So
plus there's like
it's all his agenda.
There's like the EU stuff that, not everybody's aware of, but like on the Sith scale, like he got 50 points just for keeping solid foods down at his age, which was like a nice bonus. I'm sorry. But yeah, no, it was, I always think about there's like this behind the scenes footage of making Dooku or whatever, and George Lucas walking to this room and finding the Asajj Ventress design and saying, it's this is what I want. It's either going to be this or something completely different with Christopher Lee. Like, I remember thinking to myself, this guy is out of his mind. Like, whose mind thinks like that? Like, yes, this bald alien, sexy but strong female, or Christopher Lee. I'm going one way or the other on this.
But look, I think he just wanted to, do another Hammer Films, homage.
Well,
we had Tarkin we had Peter Cushing in the original.
Right.
Let's put Christopher Lee in this.
Well, I think that that whole kind of that wave of directors that came out around Lucas, like the Coppolas, the Ron Howards, the all the Spielbergs and all those guys. They all have this like real appreciation of history with cinema.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that at that point, it was more important in George Lucas's mind for George Lucas to work with Christopher Lee than it was any other story component.
Absolutely. I mean, if we want to look at a parallel, like just look at the way that they look at the movies and the serials that they grew up with, and look at the way that we view the toy properties that we were growing up with.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's the same thing. Like you key in and love the things that you grew up on.
Yep. That's a fact. So, Revenge of the Sith.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you about that. Do you remember the trailers?
No, I don't.
So, talk to me about your opinion after seeing the film.
So, once again, my best friend and I go to see this movie, and I was very mindful of the fact that the second I sat in this seat, it would be the last time, up until that point, obviously, that I would be seeing a Star Wars movie for the first time on a screen.
Right.
So I gave it a little bit of reverence, but I knew what to expect from the story. This was just giving me the down and dirty details.
Huh.
Because we all know how the story went.
Right.
We just had to find out the exacts.
Why. The exact how.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There was something interesting I came across last week that I meant to mention that I didn't when I was looking up some of the stuff. But do you know who else was in the running to play Anakin as an adult?
I think I just read that the other day, but I can't remember.
So it was a few. Leonardo DiCaprio, I think most of us knew that. But he took Gangs of New York instead at the time. But he auditioned for it. Ryan Felipe was another one. And then two other ones that really made me go like, man, what does that? Not that I'm anti-Hayden or anything, but I'm just in my head. I'm like, man, what does that movie look like? But Christian Bale was up for it.
Good Lord.
Yep, and so was Heath Ledger.
Well, I mean, they were all younger, so I guess it may have worked. But I'm Anakin. Just imagine seeing that.
You don't know my power. But yeah,
not just the men, the women, and the children too.
They're animals. But yeah, but you didn't feel. So your feelings for Revenge of the Sith are tied mostly to your feelings to Star Wars and not to the movie independently, is what it sounds like.
I think it was a decent movie.
Mm-hmm.
I really do.
Yeah.
I mean, every movie has its drawbacks. There are very few perfect movies, especially with Lucas dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
But this one was pretty good, and I'm trying to think of something that I had a problem with in that. I can't think of anything now, but I do want to go back. Like last week, you were talking to Josh about the when Dooku is executed.
Mm-hmm.
I just watched it the other day, and preparation. I watched a couple movies for this just to re-wet my information banks.
Right.
But the look that Dooku gives Palpatine is straight up, you mother.
Yeah. But the betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. There's something
that
there.
was pure surprise. He's like, "Are you going to do me like this?"
Yeah. No, I see that. I see that as well.
But I don't know why he kept his mouth shut. I guess he was just resigned to the fact that that's my master and this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, and what's funny about all of that is he doesn't seem as committed to the dark side of the Force as, say, like a Palpatine or a Maul.
Well, he was a convert, so he's probably conflicted.
But I don't know that it's a matter of the dark side. I think maybe the way of the Sith more than the dark side, because he seemed, really all about it to me.
Well, maybe he was gray to begin with.
Well, what I mean by that is I feel like
that would be fair to say.
I feel like that, like Sidious and Maul are cut from the cloth of almost like mustache twirlers to an extent. Like they're doing bad things for the sake of being bad. Mm-hmm. Whereas Dooku, I think he does think he's doing the greater good. Like he's using it as a means to an end.
Mm-hmm.
And so it does confuse me why he wouldn't just out him you know, like right then and there, like he's a Sith Lord, by the way. Just get his head chopped off. You know, the other part of that scene that always makes you go like is when that piece of scaffolding falls on Obi-Wan's legs. Mm-hmm. It always looks like it should like cripple him for life.
Yes, it's huge, it's heavy.
But even worse, when it hits him and it slides him, it looks like it looks like Han Solo in the cantina in the special edition.
Look, man, I fell off a ladder 2 weeks ago from like a 12-foot height. I've messed myself up pretty bad. I didn't have a big piece of scaffolding fall on me and drag me across the floor. Yeah.
I do love the little exchange between Hayden and Christopher Lee, but during that, you know, like my powers have doubled since the last time we, you know, all that bid and, you know, twice.
How do you quantify that?
He did the midichlorian check.
And I quantify it as like, let's just draw another parallel to the original trilogy and redo the scene underneath in the throne room.
Yeah, for sure. But in like his, you know, Anakin using both swords at that point, like it looks good. Like that's a good fight that I feel like often goes overlooked when people talk about those movies. What about
quick paced?
Go ahead, Court. What'd you say?
I was saying it's quick paced.
Yeah,
like
very.
It's not drawn out.
Nope. And when Anakin looks down on him when he's got both blades on him, that feels like Vader to me. What about the Order 66 and Anakin's fall? How did you feel about that?
I think Anakin's fall was a little premature. I mean, he goes from trying to do the right thing and stopping. Mace. I blanked out. I'm thinking Sam Jackson. I'm seeing Sam Jackson. I couldn't remember his name. Seeing Mace, you know, have the Emperor down and, you know, just holding him there. And he's like, I got to end this. And Anakin's trying to do good. But then the second that Palpatine shoots him out the window and everything, he's like, I'm going to do everything that you say.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, there was the lore of you know, the cheating death
You're right.
promise. But,
right.
You know, I don't think that was enough for him to turn.
That
it just didn't feel right.
But that's his everything. You know, Padme. So that's how he's viewing it. And it's just the snap of a finger, really, that he turns. And you could really argue that that's the power of the dark side, how strong it really is to suck you in so quick.
Well, should we call him the bipolar Sith?
He might be that, actually. But also, I think that because I just watched episode 2 recently, and when he says, you know, to his mother, like, I failed you, and I'll never fail again. Like, I think that is a bit, that oath means more to him than the movies let on, you know? And I think I think at that point, it's like if he fails Padme, he's simultaneously failing his mother.
Yeah.
You know, at least I draw that comparison anyway. I might.
That's absolutely what it is. It's like you see a prior failure and you're not going to let it happen. You're going to do everything you can.
Yeah. And then there's that part. I'll tell you what other part that's weird with me in that movie is, and I love Palpatine in that movie. Once again, it's like seeing that character in his element, you know. But when he hits that, the Force is strong.
It's like, all right, Ian, dial it back a couple scotches.
It's almost like he's having an orgasm. Like it's like it's like so much force power that he's like, oh God, like it's like try to carry on a conversation when you pop. Like that's what it feels like. It's like happening.
Unlimited power.
Yeah. He's a loon in that movie, but it's great.
See that I don't know if that bothers anybody else, but his makeup, the difference between how he looks in that movie and how he looks in Jedi bugs the hell out of me.
Yeah.
Even though I know it's supposed to have just happened and the wounds are fresh, it just doesn't work for me.
Well, it's funny because I agree with you, but at the same time, I remember seeing it at first, and when he's changing, I have a question for you guys about that. By the way, I'll get to that in a second. But when he's changing, like I was like, oh my God, that doesn't look right. But then when he, it's shortly thereafter that he puts on the cloak and then he puts on the hood, and I was like, oh, okay, it looks okay.
It gets a little better.
Right. Did when he changes, do you guys read that as the effect of the lightning or the effect of his full dark side coming out?
I think it's that. I think he removed the fact that he's using all that to repel Mace is weakening his facade that he puts up.
Okay. What about you, Gort?
I think he might be older than, is portrayed.
Right.
I've always felt that it was a bit of both. That's
Okay.
it. Like, I mean, he's keeping the dark side sucked in, and whatever it is that he had to be doing to make sure that no one knew this guy's attuned to the Force, he has to let go, and that's messing up his skin, his face, and at the same time, he's getting splashed with lightning. So
Yeah.
I think
It's
a
like
bit of both.
if you watch Game of Thrones, it's like Melisandre. She keeps up that beautiful facade, but
Right.
underneath she's really an old, hag.
Right.
I have no idea what you just said.
Yeah, it's all right. That's just girl. The one thing though that I side more so with Chris on that view of it. But when you said he was sucking the dark side, like I think he was sucking that dark side so long that at some point he was the Force is strong with you. But there was I wanted to see if there was something else that I wanted to ask about that. But what I was most disappointed in that sequence though was him chopping down those Jedi so quick when they came in the room. Like, because seeing the trailer, I was like, I can't wait to see that 4-on-1 fight.
Yeah, and see that's a whole thing. Like we were raised with one or two Jedis,
Right.
or a Jedi and a Sith, so they were revered, they were special.
Right.
In this timeline, they're not.
Right. Agreed.
But they still should be able to repel a simple attack. The first volley of an attack.
Yeah.
Be ready. Hold your saber in front of you.
And even worse, I mean, you pointed out in the last episode, Bobby, Palpatine jumps out there and he goes, he's got his scream. But the first guy that's getting knocked out, he's like, ugh!
Yeah.
He just dies and sounds like a little bitch.
Yeah, they didn't even throw the Wilhelm scream in.
Right.
They did at some point in the movie. But
Yeah,
not that
for sure.
I don't know if that would be better or worse.
Right. I'll tell you
I
that
love that scream.
that other line from there is like something that's often said with like me or like my circle of friends, like like you stump your toe on something, and then like I like and then but, oh, you okay? And I just look at it like the attempt on my life has left me scarred and deformed. It's like I said, the more trivial the injury, the better. What about the Anakin Obi-Wan fight?
I think that was good, maybe a little drawn out. And at the end, just watching it the other day was the first time I actually thought this thought, and I'm surprised. When Obi-Wan, slashes his legs off and everything, he's sitting there at the edge of the thing, about to catch on fire and catching on fire. If you love somebody, wouldn't you just go put them out of their fucking misery?
Yeah, I've thought about that scene a lot. I think that Obi-Wan's. I think there's a discussion regarding Obi-Wan's moral compass that's probably hours long, because I think at a certain point he was definitely of the mindset of the Jedi know best. Period. But he always has that Qui-Gon voice in the back of his head.
Yeah,
and I think it's skewed how he views right and wrong. And I would love to know, more about his thoughts at that moment. And
maybe with this new show, we'll figure it out.
Maybe, hopefully, I'm looking forward to that new show. And there was somebody I was talking to recently about. I can't remember whether it was here or we were talking about the Clone Wars coming back, and that it might be running simultaneously through Episode 3. Like the end of that story might be taking place during Order 66 and all that kind of stuff, which would really excite me.
See, I didn't get into any of the Clone Wars or any of the animated stuff at all. No Rebels, no none of that.
Yeah, Rebels has its ups and downs, but Clone Wars starts low, but by the end of it ends very, very high.
It starts simple.
Yeah.
There's a lot of character building, and it's very one-off until it starts to feel more like an ongoing series,
Yes.
which is definitely in season 3.
Yes.
But you get a lot of weird elements, and maybe it's just a matter of Star Wars storytelling, because you have episodes that take place in funny orders. Some of the episodes in the first and second season take place before the initial Clone Wars movie. And that's just ridiculous. Or the first episode at the end of season 1, Cad Bane's appearance. In season 2, there's episodes that are the prequel to that.
Right.
Why? Why are you doing that? Mm-hmm. It's confusing, and it did lose me when I was watching it. It took me a second to realize what's going on.
And like I said, I never watched it, but something that confused me was Anakin's not a master, but yet he has a Padawan.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that was kind of, like desperate times. So you allow for some rules to be bent in order to create, more fodder for your army type of thing.
Gotcha.
I mean,
emergency powers.
Yeah.
And any established rules that we do know from the canon up until that point, there's a lot of stuff that you could say is thrown out the window, and they're presenting us what may have always been the case, that a knight could teach, and you don't need to be a master.
Mm-hmm. The there's I can't remember whether it's in Rebels or Clone Wars, but there's like some comparison or some information that you can deduct from it that suggests that Saw Gerrera was on Geonosis, long after the Clone Wars, or long after the initial beginning of the Clone Wars, and was breathing in that air, and the Republic had basically put pesticides on that planet to kill off the bugs.
Well, I don't know about the Republic doing that. Definitely the Empire.
Okay, the Empire. Maybe that's what it was. Yeah. And then Saul's been breathing in that air, and that's why he's on that ventilator, for lack of a better term, in Rogue One.
Mm.
Well, we saw what them things on Geonosis look like. I'd be dumping raid on them too.
Right. Exactly. So let's move into the Disney era a bit. And the Force of... what is your reaction to the buyout?
It was just, Disney had bought Marvel previously, and, just seeing big corporation after big corporation gobble up the little one.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, Disney's amassing ABC and ESPN and all those properties. Now they do this, and they got Marvel, now they got Star Wars, they got the Muppets, all of that stuff. Pretty much everything that I grew up on is sucked into the Disney conglomerate now. As far as business, I don't care because I'm not getting any money from it.
Right.
I'm also not pumping any money into it other than seeing the movies. But as far as how they were going to handle the movies, I didn't worry because of their track record with Marvel.
Right. I'm of two minds with that. So there's a logical side of my mind that says, like, oof, like you're saying, this isn't good. This isn't good for this one company to kind of, harness such power. Mm-hmm. And then there's my heart that's like, but you're gonna get more Star Wars. Just shut up. Just keep your fucking logical mouth shut. So yeah, I'm with you on that. So you see Force Awakens, and what is your thoughts?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the first movie that my wife actually saw. She bought the tickets for my birthday and took me to see it. So it was a little bit different experience, and it was the first 3D Star Wars movie I saw.
Right.
And it might have been actually the first 3D movie I saw in the theater.
Right.
Now hold up there. Do you guys remember they were supposed to do all the original movies, the 6 of them, in 3D?
Yes.
No.
Did any of you see episode 1 in 3D?
No.
I did that, and it was a really weird thing. All the CG effects in 3D looked really cool. Like it worked. It felt right. But anything else that was 3D, like a more practical effect, it looked awful. Like battle droids look great in 3D.
Did they make sure that they got the rectangles away from the outside of the TIE fighters and the X-Wings?
Yeah, that was great.
Because even after the special editions, there were still a couple scenes they missed.
Yep, for sure. So you go. So this is kind of tying back to you, right? So you go through this divorce. Star Wars is intermingled in it, like the eggs and yolk. The eggs and milk. And now you have remarried. And you're going to see it with your new wife.
Yes.
And talk about all that. How does that feel? And what is your feelings with the movie?
It doesn't really, I see the parallels you're drawing, but it really doesn't tie because the relationships are completely different. My age level is different. I have kids by this point and have been married for longer than I was married originally. Okay. So our relationship was, fine. And she was not into this stuff, so I know she was doing something for me, which was nice.
Right.
You know, to have someone, you know, your significant other, take an interest in the things that you do, I didn't think was important.
Yeah, it's a blessing,
up until
man.
recently.
Yeah,
it's huge.
Agreed. So what do you feel about the movie? Walking out of the theater.
It was good. I don't think I was blown away by it because I'm seeing it as a 40-something-year-old guy now.
Right.
And I have completely different view of life and different things that I see when I'm watching a piece of entertainment and things that I pick up on and things that I ignore now.
So talk about that a bit.
The whole like introduction of the three new main characters, the Ray, the Poe, and the
Finn.
What's his face? Finn.
Mm-hmm.
It had to happen. It just had to happen. But the way that they gelled, even though if I look at A New Hope, it happened the exact same way with Luke and Han.
Right.
Just seeing Ray and Finn bond like that, and even more to an extent, Finn and Poe.
Right.
It's like, look, he busted you out and you got off on a TIE fighter. It's like, you're not tight yet.
So to speak.
Yeah. But just having Han in there, and I knew Han was going to die from the second they said they cast him.
Right.
Like Harrison Ford has wanted to be dead since
it's a fact.
Return of the Jedi, and they're going to give it to him. And it was probably a condition of the deal.
100% was.
So, you know, when he faces Ben on the bridge, and you see that conflict in Ben, and you know it's a trick. You know, he's conflicted because the little bit is conflicting him that he doesn't want to kill his dad. The rest is, I got to kill this guy and become a badass Sith. So to see him do that, you know, it hurt. You know, to see Han die because he was always one of my favorite characters.
Right.
And, you know, when you're running around playing Star Wars as a kid, you're either Luke or you're Han.
For sure.
I was Chewbacca.
In my generation, I don't know what generation this generation identifies as.
Gort was 3PO.
No.
It might be fair, Gort.
Everybody goes outside and they're like grabbing their blasters and everything, and Gort's like, I am fluent in over 6 bit. They're like, God, Gort, you're fucking ruining it. Yeah, I was a solo kid for sure.
So you know, the movie overall was good, and you know, but seeing Han die was sad.
Yeah, no doubt. So then we have Rogue One.
That movie I really enjoyed because it was completely sideways.
Yeah, I really enjoy that movie as well. And that movie, I feel like, I don't want to say it is, but that might be the first and last Star Wars movie that was directly aimed at capturing the adult fan. And it worked, I think, by and large.
It was an adult story, and it was really just meant to flesh out what happened in a little period of time that was often talked about, but we never saw.
Yeah, I still want a Rogue One Part 2 with mini Bothan spies.
See, I would like that. That sounds good.
Yeah, man.
And I'm full on in the Jin camp versus the Rey camp.
So talk about that.
I just think she's prettier.
Oh, prettier. Oh. Okay. Let me ask you
this. That's what I mean.
I'm not sure if I think I prefer Daisy, but I like both their characters, but I do find Daisy to be more charming. There's something about her that's like has this like little sister quality. Like you just want to make sure she's okay.
See, and that makes sense why I'm attracted to Jin, because she's a little bit of the darker, and I'm attracted to her dark.
There you go. See, I had enough dark women growing up where I like the nicer, kinder ones. Yeah. So you see Rogue One, you love that, and then we get into The Last Jedi. So talk about that. That's a very controversial film, you know, amongst the fandom, and you know, for better or worse. So talk about your feelings regarding that film.
all the argument or discussions that you guys have had on previous episodes, I pretty much agree with all of those points. The protracted space battle, but that was just done deflects the New Order's might.
Right.
You say that we can just chase you and sit back here and wait for you to die.
Yeah, and I think there's an element of showmanship about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, I agree.
That and hubris.
Yeah, that's a big one in that movie. Hubris and failure, to me, are the two themes of that movie.
Yep, and guess what? That's pretty much life if you live it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the hubris thing too, like just as a theme for the Jedi. Before the show, we were talking about the librarian in episode 2.
Oh wait, let me
want to touch on that, Chris?
I want to impress Gort real quick. Jocasta knew.
That's fine. It's good. It's good you know that.
All right, go ahead, Chris.
What are you asking me to say about her?
Oh no, the line of dialogue, like we were talking about Kamino and how her response with Obi-Wan.
Yes, if an item does not appear in our archives, it simply does not exist.
And it's that Jedi arrogance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Always there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was she Jedi?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh man, that sucks. Like even a Jedi who's got to be able to be badass and lift stuff or whatever, she got to be a librarian.
She got to move around a bit in the Clone Wars.
Yeah. She also got 50 points for keeping solid food down on the light side of the Force. Yeah, that's true. That's true, man. That's a good point.
I think she was supposed to have a death scene in episode 3.
Oh, really? So it was Shakti. They filmed.
She had like 5 death scenes.
Yeah,
and one in a video game.
Yeah, that's a fact.
The final.
I like her like little tribal bit in the video game. I like that. Let me ask you this, Chris, about have you guys heard about this book that's coming out that's like Luke's research regarding the Jedi?
No.
It's a book that's coming out. It's like it's like an encyclopedia is basically what it is, but it's all about Luke's findings in research and what that yielded. So it's supposed to be like everything written through Luke's point of view, and he's going to be talking about the Old Republic. Okay. He's going to be talking about all the old Jedis that he finds during the Republic era. All of his research. So I'd be interested. Like I'm really looking forward to picking that up because I want to see what he has to say about the Jedi during the kind of Palpatine era.
Mm-hmm.
That's a cool idea.
Yeah,
and I like fiction, but I also like books like that. There was one that did come out. I think it was called The Legend of Luke Skywalker, and it's a bunch of short stories about Luke and like the tall tales, like people running into them, and it's really their interpretation from their point of view. This is Luke Skywalker, when they're coming across him in the moment, and not a great book, but it was an interesting read.
Yeah, I love that. I love that when your reputation precedes you.
Yeah,
yeah.
And something else I'd like to see. The Marvel Comics, they have like side stories. The Journal of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Luke reading through it. He picked up the book on Tatooine, and that was all he got. When like he bailed from Obi-Wan's house. I think it was destroyed actually early in the comic too. But it's stories that are firsthand accounts of Obi-Wan or just stories of Yoda and other characters, and
yeah, it's cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
I would love a book like that too.
You guys talk about like the books and the video games and everything on other shows, and we kind of went past that period. But in the Dark Ages, I was all about picking up all the books, and I read a bunch of them, but I don't like to read a lot. So a lot of the things I got on audio tapes. The tales from like the Cantina Jabba's Palace, the Bounty Hunters. Yep. I love those books.
Yeah, those were great. Those are great. Those, and then when you watch I remember one thing about those books is like I would read them and then like even just one of the stories, and then I would run back and watch the movie and try to see that character differently now because yeah.
Which
cool.
Which stormtrooper is Davin Felth?
Davin Felth, TK-145.
No, I meant like walking around in the movie.
Oh, okay.
See, that's Gort flexing on me because I said Jocasta.
But if that was actually his number, I don't remember that, but that's good. That's cool.
I think it was TK1145.
So, what about the climax of Last Jedi, the whole Luke bit and Kylo square off and then Luke joining the Force? How do you feel about all that?
I loved it. About the only thing I really didn't like in that movie was Super Leia.
Right.
But the way that Luke went out, I think, is the way that he had to go out, and I think the only way that he was going to find peace through the Force.
I agree, man. I agree. Like, it's a beautiful ending that I'm so bummed that has this controversy surrounding it, because I'm like, man, I can't imagine anything better. Like, I would have never imagined this, and everything I had imagined is not as good.
Mm-hmm. And the irony of it is Han dies in Force Awakens. Luke dies in The Last Jedi. Carrie dies in real life.
Mm-hmm.
And so just seeing that is like, okay, it's kind of sad. It's sad realizing that we are not the important generation anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, got to interrupt. What was the designation you had?
TK1145.
114. Okay, so there's two. That it turns out you're wrong, but he does have two. The Star Wars Decipher customizable card game had him as 1124, but the book had him as 1023. So somebody failed their research project.
That's similar to the combination of my luggage. That's what it turned out.
Oh, only a moron has that luggage combination.
So yeah, that's cool, man. It's interesting to me that that it did hit for you, that it hit home for you, and I
think as an adult I can understand the more mystical and like the deeper meanings of the films.
Yeah,
because they have them.
Yeah, for sure. So what about Solo?
Solo, I think he did a good job, but seeing the test shots of the other guy, like his own audition tapes, he looks, and I think would have pulled off Harrison Ford better than the guy that they did choose, although he did a great job.
Yeah, he did. I like his performance too, man, and I was really worried about it.
I was worried the fact that they changed directors.
Oh yeah,
and then they said Ron Howard's going to do it, and I'm like, all right, Ron Howard does great movies, but is he going to do a great Star Wars movie?
Yeah, I wonder if we'll ever get, I would imagine we will in like 10 to 20 years, but get kind of the information on both Rogue One and Solo and what the initial vision was for both. I'd be curious to know that.
I think both of those are another example of Disney hubris. They thought that they could put something out and it would be marginal or whatever to some people, and that everybody would enjoy it.
You might
but
be right.
Again, they're not making it for our generation. They're making it for the younger generation, even though we still buy and consume a vast majority of what they're selling.
Agreed. So where are you right now? Where's your excitement level? We got a whole bunch of Star Wars news recently, right? We have Rian Johnson kind of ramping back up for his trilogy. We have this Game of Thrones trilogy coming. We have The Mandalorian, the Clone Wars, which you don't really give a shit about, which I understand. And then we have Episode 9 and all Obi-Wan. All this stuff is coming now. Where are you at with all of it?
I will probably watch The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan just because I find, number one, I want to know about Obi-Wan's backstory,
for sure,
living on Tatooine. And Mandalorians are just badass, so why not?
Right.
And that seems like that's going to skew a lot more adult, especially with Favreau directing it. As far as the other things, like Episode 9, I just wonder how they're going to kill Leia.
Do you think they're going to kill her?
I do.
I think, somehow I think it's the wrong choice.
I think it's the wrong choice, but I think they see it as a way of completely cutting ties with
the old
G-Warners.
Right.
And the fact that she's dead in real life kind of helps their cause.
Well, it's a weird way to word it, but I get what you mean. Gord, do you have any questions for Chris?
I mean, I have my rapid fire. But...
Yeah, let's run some off.
Before we get that,
yeah.
Number one, I read The Truce of Bacura by Kathy Byers.
You did not.
I read it from cover to cover.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
And I remember the Saruk and imagining them look like a cross between a velociraptor and a Sleestak from Land of the Lost.
Gort, we're gonna have to scan all future guests to make sure that we don't have any liars on board.
There are so many books that I didn't read, but I actually read that, and I had it in hardcover.
I actually have it in hardcover as well, but I can tell you it's about one chapter that's read in it.
It did suck, but
yeah,
I had to. It happened right after Endor.
Yeah, well, I just looked it up on Amazon. It has no reviews, which kind of suggests
no reviews for a 20-year-old book.
Yeah, because no one's read it, including you. Gord, do you have any?
And one other nerd flex.
Yeah,
Varese Saraband is the producer or the record label for the Shadows of the Empire soundtrack.
Well done.
Which is a phenomenal soundtrack.
So I hear. Let's fire some off, Gort.
All right. What's your favorite lightsaber color?
Purple.
Purple. Excellent choice.
Common.
What color is your astromech navigator droid?
Orange.
Orange. Matches your flight suit?
No, because I like the Philadelphia Flyers and their color's orange.
Philly people.
Yeah.
Gaffy stick.
Go Birds.
Gaffy stick or Blastag DL44?
Gaffy.
I thought so. Do you know what the Blastag DL44 is?
That's a rifle, isn't it?
It's Han Solo's pistol.
Okay.
Who is your favorite pod racer?
Sebulba.
Yeah?
Ben Quadinaros is the correct answer.
I like Gascano. He's got 4 arms.
Which is the one whose thing stalled completely?
That's Ben Quadinaros.
That's Ben. Okay.
Yeah.
I also like that one that's like when he's getting ready to when he's getting ready to bite it. He's like,
oh, that's one of my favorite things ever. That's that guy's dying words. He got shot by Tusken Raiders.
It's like Barney off of Simpsons.
What is he, like a lizard bird man with a blindfold? How you driving the most dangerous vehicle I've ever seen in existence with a blindfold? Yeah. Like, he's not a Jedi.
But maybe he is force sensitive.
No. Best thing about Jar Jar?
That he's not in any more movies.
That's fair. Wasn't expecting that. What novel has the best cover?
That's a good one.
That is a good one. I'll have to remember, but I since I have a fondness for it anyway, I would say Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. What's your favorite Star Wars movie?
Empire, without a doubt.
Least favorite?
Phantom Menace.
That's actually mine as well, both. Who's your favorite Jedi?
Jedi, I would I'd say Luke, just because he's the longest.
You know, it's funny, like Luke might be mine now after episode 8, but he wouldn't have been prior.
Yeah, because really, he was kind of a failure.
Yeah. Favorite dark side user?
I'm gonna go Vader.
Yes, it's a hard one to get past, man.
Yeah.
Favorite non-force user?
That's a good question. I'm gonna say Wur at the bar. Because he doesn't want any blasters.
What about Broshek?
No droids.
What about Broshek, man? Broshek is my favorite dude at the bar.
Boshek.
No, not in my house.
Oh, did he change ethnicities? Or?
No, he's just Broshek in my house.
Okay.
because he's like
Well,
he's single-handedly responsible for saving the universe.
I mean, him and Chewie are the one brokering a deal, so
Yeah.
that goes back to that discussion that maybe Chewie sees Han as a pet, and he's the boss.
Yeah. Well, he puts Chewbacca and he puts Han and Chewie in touch with Luke and Obi-Wan, and then he just goes off on his adventure to just continue being awesome.
He also beat Han Solo's record.
Yes, that's what brosheks do, bro.
And he's wearing Bosk's outfit.
That's true. Also, easy custom fodder for anyone out there that wants to give it a whirl. That's all I got. Do you have anything else, Gort?
Well, real quick. I mean, everybody favorite Jedi. I just wanted to throw in there. Mine is Quinlan Vos. I love that guy in the comics, and everybody's always picking from the movie. And I know not everybody reads the EU, but I just love getting that guy's name out there. That's all.
Yeah, he's cool, man. Did you read Dark Disciple?
Not yet, but that's it. That's basically at the top of the list.
He's awesome. He's awesome in it, man. He's awesome in it. Did somebody said so? I did that video, the top 10 figures I want made from Black Series recently, and somebody said Quinlan Vos is kind of in episode 1.
Yeah, there's a character in the background. I forget if canonically that's actually supposed to be him, but it's definitely what his design in the comic is based off of. There's just a dude with a cloak, and he's got the yellow stripe on the face.
Where is he?
Was he next to the Praying Mantis?
Oh, he's in Mos Espa. You can see him, I think, early on. Maybe about the time Jar Jar's, sucking down some frogs.
Or stepping in some icky goo. God bless.
That's why he wears shoes.
Dude, I wish Ben Quaternaris would have been with the crew instead of Jar Jar.
He always looked like a Tweedlebug or something to me.
Yeah. Chris.
Yellow California raisin.
Chris, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, man.
Is there anything you'd like to plug or put people on to while you're here?
I do a couple things. We mentioned it at the top of the show. I do a podcast called TKO, Totally Knocked Off. We are coming up to the end because we have all lost the flavor for doing this thing. So I really give you props for all the stuff that you're involved in and how long you've been doing it, because it is tiring. It's a lot of work, and it really can get dull.
Yep. It sure can.
But beyond that, we're going to episode 100, and we went back up to every week now. We were 2 weeks for a while, but I just want to get it done. So that'll put us having our last show, episode 100, on January 2nd of 2020.
There you go.
That satisfies my OCD in reaching a nice round number and being in the beginning of the year.
Right. Will you still be creating merchandise? Because I do have your salt shaker and your body spray in my basement on display.
The future of TKO is uncertain, just as the future is.
Copy.
But we'll all do something. The channel will remain open. We'll probably every once in a while, get the desire to go up and throw up a show, but it won't be an official thing.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
But that'll become the end beginning of January. So if anybody wants to get on the show, because we have a guest every week, we ask them the same 13 questions. So we ask everybody.
Yep, I've been on.
And yes, you have. You were on early, but unfortunately the audio wasn't working well that night, and I hate that.
Yeah.
I'm sure you do stuff like this too. You go back and revisit things that you did before, and all you see is the failure.
I try not to. So we actually have a problem with this episode that we're recording. That once we're done, I have to put a little disclaimer at the front of. But yeah, it's a plague of everything that I create in any way, shape, or form. Is that all I see are its flaws.
Mm-hmm. And that goes into the second thing that I'm really kind of known for in the community, I guess, is I do customs. But I only do custom Transformers, and I only do them for me. Because, number one, I'm filling holes on my shelves, and two, I'm so picky about my work that I don't think I could send it out and be happy to somebody who was paying for it.
I have a custom of yours on display as well.
Yes, you do. It's one of the few non-Transformers customs that I did, and I did that back 2-3 years ago now. I was just coming into SCU and listening to that and your reviews. I mean, I saw your review that got me into you, and then it got me into SCU and Road Rage and realm and all that stuff. But like as a thank you just for the entertainment that you provided me, I just wanted to do that.
Yeah, and I appreciate it. It's one of the very few pieces that I've kept on card, so to speak. But yeah, it's one of my. I value it quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. It's those little things. Like I have certain pieces from cons or like pieces somebody may have given me or whatever. Those mean more because they have providence.
Yep, for sure. Anything else before we get out of here?
No. If you want to find me on Facebook, I go under an alias just because I have a real job and a wife and kids, and I don't want this nerd shit getting to the wrong people who may be prospective customers.
You don't want the milk and the eggs.
I do not. So if you want to look for me on Facebook, I go under Michael Aspire.
There it is. Also, if you'd like to be on this show, let us know. We have an email set up now. Gort, you want to give that out?
Yes, that would be theforcesensitive@gmail.com.
How did we get lucky enough to get that as an email?
That is nice, but it's nice and simple.
Yeah, I would have definitely thought we would have been the Force Sensitive Pod or the Force Sensitive One or
the Force Sensitive 7652.
or
actually
1145.
When the Force Sensitive came about as a name, I went and locked down accounts for a bunch of things immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Like Instagram, Twitter, all that.
Do you post?
I haven't done everything. Something with
names
everything, though.
Do you post on that stuff?
No, not yet.
Okay, let me know when you do so I can start putting all that in. All right, so that'll do it. We're going to play the name game here in a minute. So until next time, next week is the off week. So in 2 weeks, Gort and I shall return. And see ya.